Every single day, we are just bombarded with data. From the news we watch to the stuff we buy online. It can feel like a lot, right? But what if you had the tools to make sense of it all? Well, in this explainer, we're going to give you those exact tools. And let's start with a situation I bet you've been in 100 times.
Okay, picture this. It's getting warm. You're shopping online for a little fan. You find two that look pretty much the same. Same price, same features, but then you get to the reviews. And that's where things get tricky. One has a ton of 5-star ratings, but the other one has way more reviews in total.
So what do? How do you actually decide? Do you just pick the one with the most 5-star reviews? Or is there something more to the story? It's that classic feeling of being overloaded with information. And this, right here, this is what we're going to call the online shopping dilemma. It is the perfect, everyday example of a problem that data can totally solve for you, if you know how to read it.
Because the real answer isn't just about glancing at that overall star rating. No, it's about digging in a little bit, understanding the story that all those individual reviews, all that data, is actually telling you.
So, let's flip the script. Instead of seeing all this data as confusing, we're going to start seeing it as our guide. It's the tool that's going to help us turn that messy cloud of numbers into a clear, confident decision.
To do that, we first have to understand what we're working with. A really key idea here is what's called primary data. Now, that sounds a little formal, but all it means is information you gather yourself for a specific reason. Like if you conduct a survey or do an interview, it's that raw, first-hand info.
So, for example, let's say a cafeteria manager surveys almost 1,100 students to see what their favorite pizza topping is. The numbers in this table, that's a perfect example of primary data. But just staring at a list of numbers like this, it's not super helpful, is it? It's hard to get the big picture with just a quick look.
And that's where graphs and charts come in to save the day. The best way to think about them is like a toolbox. You've got different tools for different jobs, and each one is designed to tell your data story in a slightly different way. Choosing the right one is everything.
First up, we've got the classic bar graph. This is your go-to whenever you want to compare different groups. Look at this. You can see instantly that pepperoni is the clear winner, and tomato is, well, not so popular. The height of each bar makes comparing them completely effortless.
Now, let's take that same exact data and look at it with a pie chart. This thing is perfect for showing how different parts make up a whole. So instead of just raw numbers, we're seeing percentages. Here, you can see that pepperoni makes up almost 30% of the entire vote. It gives you a much better sense of its share of the popularity.
And if you want a more creative vibe, you've got the pictograph. With this, each little pizza slice icon stands for a certain number of students. It's just a really engaging way to show the same info, and it makes the data feel a little more fun and a lot less abstract.
So how do you choose which one to use? It's actually really simple. You use a bar graph when you want to compare different things. Is topping A more popular than topping B? Bar graph. You use a pie chart when you want to show how each part adds up to the total. Like what percentage of all students chose mushrooms? Pie chart.
And making one of these isn't that hard. It's basically 5 steps. First, pick your chart. Then, label your axes, the sides, so people know what they're looking at. Third, draw your actual data. Fourth, label the bars or slices themselves. And last, just give it a nice, clear title. That's all there is to it.
Okay, but making a graph, that's only half the job. The real skill, the part that's actually powerful, is interpreting it. It's all about learning to read between the bars, to go from just looking at a chart to really seeing the story it has to tell.
Let's try this out with a different example. This pie chart shows the results from a survey about how much sleep students get. We can see all the different slices for the different amounts of sleep, each with its own percentage.
But let's just pause here for a second and ask the important question. Beyond all the colors and the numbers, what's the real story here? What is this chart actually telling us about the lives of these students?
Well, to find out, let's just pull out the top 3 categories. By focusing on just the most important data points, a much clearer picture starts to show up. And immediately you can see the biggest group, by a lot, is getting 6 to 7 hours of sleep. That's kind of the main character in this whole story.
This is exactly how you pull out the good stuff. You start asking questions. First, what's the most common result? That's the 40% of students getting 6 to 7 hours. Okay. Next, what's the typical range? If you combine the top 2 groups, you realize that 2/3 of students are getting between 6 and 8 hours. And finally, any red flags? That's 16.7%. That's about 1 in every 6 students is getting less than 6 hours. Just like that, we went from a bunch of numbers to a real story with real meaning.
So you got to remember, this isn't just some exercise for a class. This skill, being able to read and understand data, it's like having an everyday superpower, for real.
Because once you can really interpret a chart, you're not just looking at shapes and colors anymore. You're actually seeing the world around you with so much more clarity. This skill lets you spot patterns that other people completely miss. It helps you ask better, more specific questions. And, maybe most importantly, it gives you the power to make smarter, more confident decisions in pretty much every part of your life.
So let's just recap that whole journey. It starts with a problem, right? Like choosing that fan. Then you gather data, you read the reviews. Then you visualize it, even if it's just making a pros and cons list in your head. And finally, you analyze that info and you make your decision. Here's the thing, you're already doing this. Now you just have the framework to do it even better.
And this skill applies everywhere, from something fun like picking pizza toppings to something really important like understanding a chart in a news article about the economy. You now have the basic tools to figure out what that information really means for yourself.
So I'll leave you with this thought. You've just been handed a new lens to see the world through. Now that you can actually read the data that is all around you, what new stories, what new patterns, and what new truths are you going to see?